Welcome to English Children. We have today Footprints Without Feet, the supplementary book. We have chapter 1, A Triumph of Surgery by James Herriot. The author, James Herriot, a veterinary surgeon and writer. James Alfred White, known by the pen name James Herriot, was a British veterinary surgeon and writer, born in Sunderland, England. He was born on 3rd of October 1916, Sunderland, County Durham, England. Died on 23rd of February 1995. His cause of death was prostate cancer. Spouse John Catherine Anderson Dunby. Children James Alexander White Rosemary Page. He wrote a few books: All Creatures Great and Small, All Things Bright and Beautiful, All Things Wise and Wonderful, Treasury for Children, Warm and Joyful Tales. Herriot, the author of All Creatures Great and Small series, set the bar high for compassion combined with competence. Brevard County's Daphne Foundation honored him with the James Herriot Award, to be given to an outstanding agency or individual who, through communication with the public, has helped promote and inspire an appreciation of and concern for animals. Let us see the story at a glance. The story starts when Mrs. Pumphrey, a rich lady, takes her dog out for a walk. A nearby veterinary doctor who knows the lady sees the dog and is shocked as he sees that the dog looks like a bloated sausage with a leg at each end. He advises her to stop giving him unhealthy things to eat, but Mrs. Pumphrey is not able to refuse him. Soon he falls sick and the doctor is called. The narrator, Mr. Herriot, then somehow takes Tricky, the dog, to the hospital, even though he knows that Mrs. Pumphrey is not ready to leave her dog, and nearly fainted just by hearing these words. Then he takes the dog along and puts a bed for him in the surgery. The dog doesn't move much nor eats anything for the first 2 days. On the second day, he looks around and whimpers a bit. He wanted to go out on the third day and started playing with the bigger dogs when he was taken out. He also licked the bowels of another dogs clean on the third day. So he was moving. Then his condition started improving very fast. He started fighting for his meals with other dogs. Then when this news reached Mrs. Pumphrey, she started sending him eggs as she thought that Tricky was recovering from an illness and needed energy foods. Mr. Herriot and his partner started eating those eggs for morning breakfast. Then for improving Tricky's blood, Mrs. Pumphrey started sending in bottles of wine, which was again consumed by Mr. Herriot. He used to take 2 glasses before lunch and some more glasses while having his lunch. Then when she started sending in bottles of brandy for Tricky, that was the time when Mr. Herriot thought that he would really like to keep Tricky as a permanent guest in the surgery. Mr. Herriot used to be really happy someday by having 2 extra eggs every morning, then having few glasses of wine in the afternoon and closing the day by having brandy at night. But took a wise decision and called up Mrs. Pumphrey as she was really worried, and on this side, Tricky was also to be taken back home. Tricky was really happy to see his mistress and jumped into the car. Mrs. Pumphrey said that she won't be able to thank him for what he had done and also that his surgery had been a great thing as Tricky was now cured. This was the story in short. We have the characters now. First character, Mrs. Pumphrey, a rich lady with a number of servants and maids. She is passionately attached to her pet dog, Tricky. She was foolishly indulgent and would pamper her dog by giving him chocolates, cakes, juice, eggs, and wine. She was ignorant and did not know they do needed exercise too. So, when he fell ill, she was very anxious and thought something serious had happened to him. She, as silly but tender hearted, she cried when Tricky was taken to the hospital. She was a simple person and it was easy to please her. She was happy when the pet came all right. She was grateful to Dr. Harriet for making Tricky healthy. She went to the extent of calling it a triumph of surgery. So we can say that Mrs. Pumphrey was rich, foolishly indulgent, ignorant, anxious, silly, tender hearted, simple, easy to please, and a grateful person. We have Tricky. He's a small dog. His greed of food was his only fault. Overfeeding of sweets, cakes, chocolates makes him extremely fat. He becomes rheumy and listless. His tongue rolls from his jaws. So, out of concern, his mistress took him to the vet. The vet knows Tricky's real problem, and he also knew Mrs. Pumphrey will not stop feeding him. So, out of concern, he took Tricky and told his mistress to cut down on sweet things. But his instructions were ignored by Mrs. Pumphrey. His mistress got upset when he left eating, going for walks, or anything. His mistress bewailed when he was taken to the hospital. The doctor took interest in him and kept him under observation for a few days and only gave him plenty of water. He regained his energy and showed interest in other dogs. He was finally taken home. He was a very kind and grateful dog. This was Tricky. Now we have Dr. James Herriot. He is a competent veterinary surgeon. He is really worried about Tricky. He understands that the real fault of the dog is his greed for food. Dr. Herriot instructs Mrs. Pumphrey to keep Tricky under strict diet. Dr. James Herriot is practical and pragmatic. He doesn't give any medical treatment to the dog. He feeds the dog with only water. His method works. The grateful mistress thanks Dr. Herriot and calls his feat a triumph of surgery. Dr. Herriot is clever enough to enjoy the best of both the worlds. The time of Tricky's stay at the hospital was a period of content for Herriot. He used to enjoy the treat that arrived in the name of Tricky, as he could not afford all this for himself. He used to relish the fresh eggs in breakfast, wine before and during lunch, and brandy in the night. He is tempted to keep Tricky as a permanent guest. It was a happy period for the doctor. This was about Dr. James Herriot as he plays the role in the story. Now, children, that were the characters we had. Now there was a text and these are the meanings you need to know. Let us start. Mistress, a woman in position of authority or control. Bloated, excessive in size or amount. Sausage, an item of food in the form of a cylindrical length of minced pork or other meat encased in a skin, typically sold raw to be grilled or fried before eating. Bloodshot, of the eyes it is saying, inflamed or tinged with blood, typically as a result of tiredness. Rheumy, watery. Lolled, sit, lie or stand in a lazy, relaxed way. Hasten, to be quick to do something. Listless, lacking energy or enthusiasm. Malnutrition, lack of proper nutrition. Cod liver oil, oil pressed from the liver of codfish. Relent, becomes less severe or intense. Lumbago, pain in the muscles and joints of the lower back. Regime, a system or ordered way of doing things. Tottering, move in a feeble or unsteady way. Tweed, a rough surfaced woolen cloth. Wardrobe, a large tall cupboard or recess in which clothes may be hung or stored. Harness, a set of straps and fittings. Distraught, very worried and upset. Bouts, a short period of intense activity. Rug, a floor covering. Panting, breathing with short. So, quick breaths, breathing with short, quick breath. So that when it gets tired or you have run a lot, you're panting, feeling short of breath. Fortnight, a period of 2 weeks. Soon, a partial or total loss of consciousness. Wailings, crying with pain, grief, or anger. Marched, walk quickly and with determination. Roused, caused to stop sleeping. Maids, a female domestic servant. Rushed, done or completed too hurriedly or hasty. Supper, an evening meal, typically a light or informal one. Despairing, showing loss of all hope. Glanced, take a brief or hurried look. Patted, touch quickly and gently with the flat of the hand. Wag, especially with reference to an animal's tail, move or cause to move rapidly to and fro. Then searched, move suddenly and powerfully forward or upward. Motionless, not moving, stationary. Sniffing, the action of drawing in air audibly through the nose. Whimper, make a series of low, feeble sounds expressive of fear, pain, or unhappiness. Trotted, run at a moderate pace with short steps. Engulfed, sweep over something so as to surround or cover it completely. Slopped, spill or flow over the edge of a container. Liable, likely to do or to be something. Jostling, push, elbow or bump against someone roughly, typically in a crowd. Scrimmages, a confused struggle or fight. Trampled, tread on and crush. Squashed, flat, soft or out of shape as a result of being crushed or squeezed with force. Shaggy, long, thin and unkempt. Hovered, remain poised, uncertainty in one place or between two states. Anxiously, feeling or showing worry, nervousness, or unease about something with an uncertain outcome. Bulletins, a short official statement or broadcast summary of news. Convalescing, recover one's health and strength over a period of time after an illness or medical treatment. Inhaled and reverently drunk. Brandy, a strong alcoholic spirit distilled from wine or fermented fruit juice. Okay, then we have brandy, a strong alcoholic spirit distilled from wine or fermented fruit juice. Constitution, the composition of something. Reverently, with deep and solemn respect. Temptation, the desire to do something, especially something wrong or unwise. Compelled, bring about something by the use of force or pressure. Gleaming, reflecting light, typically because very clean or because it is very clean or polished. Chauffeur, a person employed to drive a private or hired car. Clasped, grasp tightly with one's hand. Hurtling, move or cause to move at high speed, typically in an uncontrolled manner. Startled, feeling or showing sudden shock. Swarmed, move somewhere in large numbers. So these are the meanings. Thank you children for watching. Hope that would be useful for you.